All right, can you hear me now? Awesome. I'm not used to having this fancy mic on me and stuff like that. So it's going to be kind of weird being able to use my hands instead of a handheld. Get the opportunity to speak this morning, and we are actually live streaming to the other place. So, hi Wheeler, how are you guys doing today? So it's a little bit different, but it's exciting. And today we're going to continue on in Genesis. As we spoke last week, Pastor Kevin gave the sermon for Genesis 6, and we're going to continue on with Genesis 7 and get into the flood era. And that'll be a kind of a two-part process as far as this week and next week. So water, that's what it's all about, water, right? Everybody likes water for the most part. I've learned that my daughter does not like to drink water for the most part. They will find any caffeinated drink, anything like that, in order not to drink water. It doesn't matter if it's tea. It doesn't matter if it's anything else but water. I probably went through that phase as well. But water is what makes life go round. Water is something that we need. As our bodies, we need that water. And yes, I could talk about what percentage of the body is made up of water, how much percentage of the world is made up of water. We know that because we've been in school at some point or another. We know these facts. But water, it is needed to survive. We know this. We understand it. Now we're going to get into the point in Genesis where that's a lot of water. More than it was not to survive. In fact, actually with that water, the water that came down and actually came out from the ground as well, that water, you couldn't survive it. It was not meant to be that way. That was part of God's judgment, was to basically drown everybody. And I know that seems harsh, that seems very rude, but it was the judgment that God was getting and giving to his people. We talked about in chapter 6 where God said, I regret making mankind. I regret making this creation right now. And it was a start over. It was a redo. It was let's wipe the slate clean because everybody is so wicked at this point. So we're going to bring water into this. Now, I learned that, could we survive in water? If that were to happen today, could we survive that? And I said, okay, I started looking up, how long could you tread water? Guinness Book of World Records holds as the original one, as far as treading water, was 4 days. 4 days. And this is a military person. This is back in the 70s. 4 days, this person treaded water. And they were saying that his family was throwing him, protein drinks and shakes and stuff like that into the water. And I'm not going to get into all the specifics on how he did it. He took no breaks. Your eyes and your head had to keep level with the water. That was the rules on this. But you had to keep treading water. No breaks, there's no bathroom breaks. Let's just put it that way. That's about as gross as I'm going to get with this one. No breaks. Now, the next person that actually did break his record, though, they gave them breaks every hour and even gave sleeping breaks. And he's like, that's not really fair. But this guy did it for 4 days straight. Think about treading water. Not survivable. If we were to put it that same time, if God were to do the same thing again, he gave the promise that he won't. But if we were to do the same thing again, we could not survive that. Now, water, once again, it's about survival. It's refreshing. It's welcome in the hot sun, right? In the summertime, when we're in the hot part, not that it gets that hot here in Wisconsin. Try going south for a little while, and you'll find out how hot it is and how dry some things can be. But water is so welcome, going to the water parks. I used to love going to the slip and slide areas or building a slip and slide in your backyard. Going to the water parks during the summer, that's welcome. Drinking from the hose. It's okay to do that. You will survive, trust me. In 1992, the summer was won by one product alone. It was the best product ever, the Super Soaker. The best water gun you could get at that point was the Super Soaker. What started it all? And after that point, they tried to make them bigger and better and stuff like that. But I remember getting one as a kid. Okay, I was almost a teenager at that point when when those were coming out, but getting one, the gun that had the big green tube on it, it basically is like somebody decided to make a water gun and put a 2-liter on for a canister. That's all it was. But it was the greatest gun ever. It worked great. It lived up to its name of a super soaker. That was welcomed. But too much of it can be annoying. If it rains too much, it gets annoying if you don't have the right clothes, or if you don't have the rain suit, or if you don't have an umbrella. Too much water splashed at you coming from down, or if you think about Forrest Gump, the rain was coming from everywhere. It even came upside down sometimes. You know, there was rain, and it would come. Or if you get splashed, if you're walking down the street and somebody, drives their car right beside that big old splash of puddle and you get soaked, how many? I'm the only one. Probably. I remember walking to school sometimes, and yes, that would happen. Too much of it is annoying. I was recounting a story one time with my staff members at my work, and talking about how we used to help my parents at my dad's work, which was a bar at that point. And my sister and I, we helped clean the bar on Saturdays. So one of my jobs, I think we traded this off every other week, but one of my jobs was to go out there with a hose outside in the parking lot area and right at the entryway, and we would have to take the hose and we have to shoot the cigarette butts away and stuff like that, so it just wouldn't crowd there, because back then you could smoke in bars and you can smoke outside, whatever. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff at a bar. So it was up to us. I was probably about between 10 and 12 at that age, and I had the hose, had the nozzle, had the trigger. I'm just doing my job, squirting all the cigarette butts. That's awesome as a kid, right? It was a great job. I didn't even get paid for it. We found quarters of stuff behind the bar all stuck to the ground and whatnot from all the alcohol and the grenadine, everything like that, and people stepping on it. That was our pay. But I was out there, nice day, doing my job. All of a sudden, this beer guy comes up, and he's one of the vendors just delivering beer. And I thought, my old dumb self at 10 years old to 12 years old, I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I sprayed him? I did. It wasn't just a thought. This thought came into being. It manifested, and my old mischievous self, not much different from myself right now, but my old mischievous self just began to spray him with water. And I'm not talking about the mist. I had this at good jet setting, because that's the only way you're going to get these cigarettes out of the cracks. So I had this on jet setting, and all he's trying to do is his job. He's just trying to stack the beer onto his dolly and get inside, get out, and get to his next place where he has to deliver. But no, I have to go and mess this up. And I have to soak this gentleman from head to toe. And this wasn't like a one time. I soaked him. I thought it was funny. I'm laughing. He's like trying to get out of the way, and I'm laughing, and I got in trouble. Let's just say that. Let's just say I got in trouble. Now, I would love to find out what his thoughts were after the fact. Did he have a change of clothes? Did he go to his next place all soaking wet? What did he tell his boss? Because that's not an ordinary day. So water can be annoying sometimes in a 10-year-old kid's hands. But also water can destroy as well. Too much water, floods, we know about them, we hear about them, the hurricanes, all these different things that can destroy crops, it can destroy buildings, it can destroy cities and civilization. Finding out one of the biggest floods, aside from what's happened in Genesis, is one of the biggest floods killed like 1.5 million people at this time. And I believe it was in 1921, somewhere around there. So floods can be devastating. Water can be devastating. Another devastating thing is the movie Waterworld, because it was not that good in the box office or anything like that. In fact, at the time, in 1995, the movie Waterworld that starred Kevin Costner and a few main names had this movie about the water world. There was no land. The whole earth was flooded, and basically it was a Mad Max on water is what it was. Now, that might be dating myself just a little bit as far as the movies go, but that's essentially what it was. The movie did not do that well. In fact, actually, at that time, it was one of the most expensive movies made to date, at $125 million to make that movie. This is in 1995. Now it takes a lot more to make movies like this. And I think it just broke even at the box office. So not a good turnout. It actually killed Kevin Costner's career. Now think, Kevin Costner, he's a well-known actor. He's a very good actor. But that movie alone kind of killed his career. He never really bounced back from it. Now this is the same man who starred in the movie Dances with Wolves that won an Oscar. It's the same man that did The Bodyguard not too many years before that. So this guy is a credited guy. But past that point, no, he was done after that movie. Let's just say that the water sunk his career. That was intended, by the way. It's okay. Yeah, I got the dad jokes all day, baby. So we move on to Noah, like the original flood, the original story. And we think about the Noah's Ark, this story in itself is just a picturesque. Now, if you think about it, I know that they did their movies. They did their movies, and it was more of a satire. It was more of a comedy and stuff like that had a little bit of a good intention. But if you think about it, if they were to make that today, and the budgets that they have today, and the special effects that they have today, think about like what it would really look like. You're talking about a picturesque kind of deal. Noah's Ark, you got this big old huge boat that's being made. But then you start seeing the rains coming down and you start seeing the water kind of bubbling up from the ground and it's starting to fill very fast in order to cover the earth where it sits 22 feet above the highest mountain. Think about that for a second there. I mean, nobody's going to survive that. This is what's going to happen. But it's a picturesque moment saying, man, that's an absolute killer right there. Many lessons have been drawn from the historical account that have been blessed and benefited the people of God for millenniums. So this is a story that has been talked about. This is an account in history that has been talked about and used for illustrations, used for a learning process. So this narrative has also been the message for us even today. We look at Paul. And he's talking to Timothy. He's encouraging Timothy, and he's letting him know in 2 Timothy 3, verse 1 through 9. So basically, kind of it says, you should know this, Timothy, that in the last days, there will be very difficult times. Now, don't stop me if we understand this and what we're dealing with today. For people will love only themselves and their money. They will be boastful and proud, scoffing at God, disobedient to their parents, and ungrateful. They will consider nothing sacred. They will be unloving and unforgiving. They will slander others. They will have no self-control. They will be cruel and hate what is good. They will betray their friends, be reckless, be puffed up with pride, and love pleasure rather than God. They will act religious, but they will reject the power that could make them godly. Stay away from people like that. They're the kind who work their way into people's homes and win the confidence of vulnerable women who are burdened with the guilt of sin and controlled by various desires. Such women are forever following new teachings, but they are never able to understand the truth. These teachers oppose the truth, just as Jannes and Jambres opposed Moses, and they have depraved minds and a counterfeit faith. But they won't get away with this for long. Someday everybody will recognize what fools they are, just as Jannes and Jambres. Does any of that sound familiar at all? Does any of that sound like stuff that we're dealing with today, that we are struggling with today, that we witness and hear and see on a daily basis? This is part of the New Testament that Paul says this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to see. This is what people are going to turn to. This is how people are going to live their lives. So apparently we didn't get the message or the lesson that was taught about the flood. Perilous times are coming. And we see this on a daily basis. It's already here. The newspapers newscasters, headlines that highlight how dangerous the times are, from teenagers to old timers. Nobody's safe. If you remember the Columbine incident in 99, in April of 99, it said a pastor of one of the slain students had made this observation and also made this very timely statement. It says, the only real security we have in this world is Christ. The only security that we have in this world is Christ. So we move back to that story of Noah. Back to the story of him getting ready to get on the ark. It's not even a journey. This is not a well-planned event. This is not like a spring break kind of thing. This is a survival deal. But we see the ark in a few different ways. And the first thing is, we see the ark as a place of salvation. But before that we get even to that, I want us to read the first 5 verses of Genesis 7. So I'm going to ask you to stand, and we're going to trade off like we normally do. Going to get into this, and we're going to see the 3 different areas. So Genesis chapter 7. I'm going to start with the first verse. We'll go every other. When everything was ready, the Lord said to Noah, go into the boat with all your family. For among all the people of the earth, I can see that you alone are righteous. Also, take 7 pairs of every kind of bird. There must be a male and a female in each pair to ensure that all life will survive on the earth after the flood. So Noah did everything as the Lord commanded him. Father, once again, I thank you for this time to be able to give your message, a message that we have seen and heard about from young age to now. And Lord, that we would be ready to hear and heed your words as we are living in those times. But know that you are our salvation, that our only hope is in you alone. Pray this in your name. Amen. You may be seated. So the first thing that we see within the ark as he gets ready to get into the ark is it's not a journey right now. This is an act of survival. What we see with the ark is a place of salvation. So Genesis 7:1 says, when everything was ready, the Lord said to Noah, go into the boat with all your family. From among all the people on earth, I can see that you alone are righteous. All the people, everybody on earth, every inhabitant says you are the only one who is righteous. You are the only one that is faithful. So I'm going to save you because I'm getting ready to do this thing, and it's going to wipe everybody out. It's not just going to wipe the people out. It's going to wipe all the animals out. It's going to wipe all vegetation out. It's going to wipe everything clean and out and dead and gone. Start over. And you, my sir, are the only one. You got the vote. You're the only one who I find righteous. You're the only one that has this faith like no other. One. So I'm going to save you and your family. You get to get on the boat. You get this pleasure of moving on. Talk about ultimate survivor right there. That's like literally being voted off the island because there's going to be no island anymore. And the 5th verse says, so Noah did everything as the Lord commanded him. I couldn't imagine that kind of conversation. As we talked about building of the boat and God's plan and everything like that, God is an amazing architect, apparently. To know exactly, that's the thing, is you know how God is, and you know that He's got this ultimate plan that we don't see, we don't understand, we don't fathom, to come up with the concept of a boat that is going to be exactly what it's supposed to be, that is able to house all the animals, is able to house Noah's family, it's able to house all the food, everything like that in one spot that it's going to be able to start over. God has this plan. And he told Noah how to build the boat according to his plan. It was by faith that Noah came to his salvation. And we read in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 7, it says, "It was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. He obeyed God, who warned him about things that had never happened before. By his faith, Noah condemned the rest of the world and received the righteousness that comes by faith." By Noah's faith, he was saved. By his obedience, he was saved, him and his family. The only place of salvation at that time through God was going to be that ark. That was what was going to hold him safe. But it was because of his faith. It was because of his actions. It was because of his obedience why he and his family were saved. It is by Jesus that we have salvation. It is by our faith in God, our faith in Jesus, that we have salvation. In Acts chapter 20, verse 21, Paul writes and says this, "I have but one message for the Jews and Greeks alike: the necessity of repenting from sin and turning to God, and of having faith in our Lord Jesus." Understanding what he did, he brought that salvation to us. We have a way of reaching that, and that is through Jesus, but only by Jesus. All those who have faith in him can be saved. All those who obey and have faith in what he did for you and I can be saved. We don't have to go through that world-ending stuff like that. The song says, "Oh, come to the altar." We have that ability every single day to come to the altar. We have that ability to come to Jesus every day and repent of our sins. We have that ability to come to him in faith, come to him in our obedience, come to him in our weaknesses, and boast on his strength and his strength alone. We can't save ourselves. We can't receive that salvation just on our own ability, our own measure, our own strengths. It's only God who gives that. God gives that salvation. Jesus gives that salvation. At that time with Noah, God gave that salvation to him because of the faith that he had. And he was the only one. And along with that, it secured his future. It secured his family's future. And yes, I understand that you could go a couple different ways with this too, is that, well, God only saved them so he could repopulate the earth. Well, yes, and that's what it was. But God could have also started way over too. It's like, well, I could have just created man and woman again if I wanted to. God can do anything. But he chose to use the man that had faith. He chose to use the man that was unwavering through this whole process, unwavering through his life. Remember, it wasn't just that he had faith in the situation that was getting ready to come about. It wasn't that he was obedient in that situation, saying the world is going to end, so will you build me a boat? Okay, God, I got this. I'm going to listen to every single thing that you say. No, this started beforehand. This started beforehand. He was faithful through and through. I'm going to save you and your family. Your future is secured right now because of this. You're going to repopulate the earth because of this. The second thing that we see that the ark represents, or it is a place of provision. Like I said last week, the ark was kind of like a zoo and a Sam's Club all rolled into one. It's a floating Sam's Club zoo. It's a floating zoo club. Sam Zoo. I like that better. Floating Sam Zoo. The ark is a place of provision. Verse 2 and 3 of Genesis 7 says, "Take with you 7 pairs, male and female, of each animal that I've approved for eating and for sacrifice. And take 1 pair of each of the others. Also, take 7 pairs of each kind of bird. There must be male and female in each pair to ensure that all life will survive on earth after the flood." God's going to provide. It doesn't mean that we're not going to put in effort and put in work into it, but God is still going to provide. The way that he does it is completely different than what we look at and what we see and what we do. God provided a way out. God provided salvation. He's going to provide provision. He's not going to just save somebody and say, well, you're on your own now. Figure it out. God is going to have a plan. He's going to have a way out. He's going to have an escape route. When he said, I'm going to end everything with this flood, I find you righteous. You're the only one out of everybody here on earth. I'm going to save you. I'm going to save your family. But this is how it's going to be done. I want you to build a boat so that everything can survive, so we can basically start over again. But he says back in the 6th chapter, he says, the animals are going to come to you. I will bring the animals to you. They're going to come. Oh, thank goodness I don't have to go wrangle them, because I can't do spiders. Now, whether we want to talk about like if there was every species or just one species of everything, that one, we're not going to talk about that off. But I couldn't do it. You want me to do the spiders? You want me to do what? I'm okay with the reptiles. Those are fine. I'll do those. I'll be the snake wrangler. That's okay. But then you start thinking, venomous snakes or non-venomous snakes? I don't know. Poisonous spiders or non-poisonous spiders? No spiders. There are no good spiders. They shouldn't have ever made it on the ark, but yet they did. God provided. Says, I want you to do this. This is how you're going to build. This is how you're going to survive it. This is what's going to happen in order for you to make it through and to build everything back up again so that everything survives. I want each of these sets of animals, not just the 2 sets that went on that were able to multiply at that point or after that point, but you're going to have these for food. You're going to have these for also sacrifices afterwards. So there was a plan already. Make sure that you have food for yourselves. Make sure you have food for the animals as well. So everything survives. So you make it through the time of which I'm going to end this earth. I'm going to provide. God provides for us when we are in need. God provides for us when we are faithful and we are obedient. And we listen to him, and we love him, and we accept him, and we have this relationship with him. He is going to provide.